Hello everyone. In this video I will explain what JavaScript is. JavaScript is a dynamic, scripted, weakly typed, interpreted, hosted programming language that's used for web development, in web applications and lots more. It allows you to implement dynamic features on web pages that cannot be done with only HTML and CSS. When JavaScript was created, it initially had another name, LiveScript, but Java was very popular at that time, so it was decided that calling the language JavaScript would help. But as it evolved, JavaScript became a fully independent language with its own specification called ECMAScript. But careful, JavaScript has nothing to do with Java. Now, what does dynamic, interpreted, or hosted programming language mean? JavaScript is called a dynamic language because it doesn't have just a few dynamic aspects. Pretty much everything is dynamic. All variables are dynamic, both in type and existence. And even the code is dynamic. You can create new variables at runtime, and the type of variables is determined at runtime. We can create a variable, define it as a number, and just the next line change it to a string. We will talk about data types later in the course. What does it mean that JavaScript is interpreted? Interpreters basically run through a program line by line and execute each command, while compilers take a whole program as input and translate it into executable code in several steps. Take note that it translates into an executable binary code. Once we compile, we do not need to compile again until we make any changes. Moreover, the fact that JavaScript is interpreted, it makes him also a scripted language. I mentioned ECMAScript before, but what is it? What does it have in common with JavaScript? ECMAScript is a standard for scripting languages. All popular browsers representatives are working on ECMAScript standard. JavaScript is not the only implementation. There is, for example, JScript, which is developed by Microsoft, and ActionScript, which is developed by Adobe Flash. However, JavaScript is the most popular implementation. JavaScript can be either client-side or server-side. From the client side, it supplies objects to control a browser and its document object model. Basically, we can put elements on HTML which bring more creativity, more interactivity with the user through clicks, inputs, or page navigation. When it comes to server side, JavaScript supplies objects to run on a server. We can communicate with a database, provide information from one invocation to another of the application, or perform file manipulation on a server. How to add JavaScript to your HTML? Well, we have two options, either internally or externally. When it comes to internally, we can add JavaScript directly to our HTML file by writing the code inside the script tag. The script tag can either be placed inside the head or the body tag, according to the requirement. When it comes to external JavaScript, we can write JavaScript code in another file having an extension .js, and then link this file inside the head tag of the HTML file in which we want to add this code. At the end, just a few history information that we should try to remember. JavaScript has been introduced by Netscape in 1995 as a LiveScript, which later will become JavaScript. And JavaScript has been created by Brendan A. Okay guys, thank you for watching and see you in the next video.